What is going on, y'all, and welcome back to a brand new video where we're going to be diving into some new info about American Marksman. Now, right here at the top, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the main subject of the video, and that is this. Now, what you're looking at here is our very first look at first-person view inside a vehicle in free roam in multiplayer with a friend. Now, and as you'll notice, that friend is on a four-wheeler and you are in a pickup truck, and not just any pickup truck. If that dash has anything to do with it, this is a Chevy square body, which means Chevy square bodies are confirmed for American Marksman. Now, there is a little FPS counter down there in the bottom left-hand corner, which probably means that this is a kind of work-in-progress development version of the game, which makes sense because the game is still in development, but it's kind of nearing in on its final stages, or at least that's what the developers have been sort of hinting at lately. Now, the interface looks very similar to Offroad Outlaws and the free roam in No Limit Drag Racing, which again does make sense because this game is from the same developers. But as I look at this screenshot, I look at a couple of the different details and I'm like, wait a minute, this is way more visually detailed than Offroad Outlaws or No Limit Drag Racing 2.0. Like, look at the grass detail. Look at the sky. The sky is a big one for me. Look at all the variation in the clouds. Look how far ahead you can see the massive rocks out in the distance. I mean, this is a absolute step up from the prior games from these developers. And that's not to say that these developers haven't made games with amazing graphics. I mean, look at the gameplay that we're looking at right now of Offroad Outlaws on the screen. I mean, this is a mobile game, and the graphics in Offroad Outlaws are not bad at all. I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there in the comments that are going to be like, what do you mean? These graphics are absolutely awful. Every mobile game has awful graphics. And here's the thing. Remember, these games have to run on some of the widest varieties of devices in the universe. I mean, when they come out with a game, let's say a developer comes out with a game for PC, then you get, graphical quality settings that you can adjust depending on what kind of hardware you have. When you have a game that releases on a particular generation of consoles, like let's say this current generation, for example, there is a sort of threshold that the developers are kind of given to design their games around, which means everybody's going to have about the same graphics. Whereas on mobile devices, there are so many different devices that the developers need to make these games playable on that I'm just genuinely impressed that they've been able to put graphics of that magnitude in a mobile game. Now, as we move on to the next screenshot here, this one, you can kind of see a little bit more of an up-close look at what looks like a wild boar, and then you see the hunters in the back. You also see kind of the four-wheeler and the Chevy square body kind of off to the side. Now, once again, this photo, if it wasn't confirmed by the previous one, it's absolutely confirmed here. American Marksman is officially getting a Chevy square body. Now, I don't know what other trucks are going to be coming to the game. The developers haven't really dropped that kind of information just yet, but I know that a lot of you guys are going to be interested in the list of trucks that are coming because obviously, especially if you've been an Offroad Outlaws player for a long time, that list of trucks matters. That list of trucks is very important to you, and I completely understand that. Now, I know that this game is not going to have as large of a focus on the trucks as, say, for example, Offroad Outlaws would, because Offroad Outlaws, I mean, the primary focus is the vehicles, right? There's no question about that. Whereas in American Marksman, the vehicles are kind of like, they're there, but they're a secondary, kind of secondary addition to the game. Like, they are really, for all intents and purposes, a vehicle to get you around the map in order to assist with the hunts, right? Like, the hunts themselves are the end goal of the game, whereas the vehicles are more of a means to that end. And that's not to say that you can't, enjoy the vehicles and get, connected with the vehicles, but they're not quite as much of a forefront focus as they would be in a game like, say, Offroad Outlaws or No Limit Drag Racing 2.0, where the trucks and the cars are the primary focus of the entire game. So now that we've talked about those new screenshots for American Marksman, let's shift our focus a little bit to Offroad Outlaws, because Offroad Outlaws has been in a very interesting place lately, right? I think a lot of people in the Offroad Outlaws space are either really latching on to American Marksman, or they're in a space where they're still playing Offroad Outlaws, but they've become a little bit on and off with it because they're kind of unsure of when the game is going to get updated next, or what is going to happen next with the game. Now, I'm not saying that that is the entire Offroad Outlaws community. The Offroad Outlaws community in general is still a very, very, very healthy community, but I think there's a element, there's a part of the Offroad Outlaws community that I see out there in, whether it be YouTube comments or Facebook comments and things like that, that are just kind of they're curious, like, where is Offroad Outlaws going next? What is next on the radar for Offroad Outlaws? And it makes sense to be wondering, right? I mean, Offroad Outlaws was kind of the primary focus of these developers for a really, really long time in terms of updates and post-launch support, which it still is a focus of theirs, and I mean, you can tell that they are very active in the community still, but they're definitely focusing a lot of time and energy on American Marksman at the moment, and also No Limit Drag Racing 2.0, which has just very recently gotten a brand new update. But as far as what's next around the corner for Offroad Outlaws, I think it's actually a decent time to open up the conversation about where we would like to see Offroad Outlaws go next. And usually when I open up that conversation, a lot of people say, well, they need to add this truck, or add this truck, or add this truck. And I think while it is important to add new vehicles, and I always think that new vehicles are good additions to the game, I think it's important for Offroad Outlaws, for example, like before new vehicles get added, I would almost want the customization to be expanded further, and maybe even a graphical overhaul, right? I think a graphical overhaul would be really, really nice to see in Offroad Outlaws, but at the same time, I understand how it might not make the game run so well, especially on older devices. Now, as far as the customization options that I would like to see brought forth into Offroad Outlaws, we've talked about these a lot in the past. I mean, the ability to take any truck and switch it between a single cab, an extended cab, or like a full four-door cab, I would love to see that. I think that that would be one of the best updates to customization that they could possibly do, because think about it. I mean, you could take, for example, the third-gen Dodge that we've had in Offroad Outlaws for forever. Many, many years. I would love to be able to take that truck and turn it into a crew cab, or turn it into a mega cab, or let's say you just want to leave it as a single cab, you could do that as well. And I think essentially what you do when you have that option is you basically get 3 different trucks in one. Actually, technically, like maybe even 4 or 5, because if you have the option to do like a 4-door like you had on the 2500s, or you could do like a mega cab, you could do like, you know, the standard 4-door, or you could do a mega cab, and then you could do a dually or non-dually, so it could be 2500 or 3500, you know, single wheel, dual wheel. You have all these different options in just that one truck. And now think about if that option was expanded to basically all the pickup trucks in the game. Do you realize how much variety you would add to the game doing just that? Not only how much variety you would add, but how much choice just in the realm of customization that you would add. It's genuinely a huge amount, and it's genuinely something that I think that they should seriously consider. Now, is it something that could be hardware limited? Very, very possibly so, because I know a lot of the features that we have talked about on our streams and in the videos when the developers have been present, you know, issues like, for example, mobile hardware limitations have cropped up. Like, for example, when people have been asking for, you know, more vehicles, like they couldn't just add like 10 more trucks without overloading the game. Like, this game already has so much in it that on a lot of older mobile devices, it tends to lag sometimes on the higher quality graphical settings. So when you think about it in that sense, the developers are in kind of an awkward spot, because you have a fan base that is always going to want more vehicles. They're always going to want more features. They're always going to want more maps. But the developers at a certain point begin to get limited by the hardware that their game is running on. And in this case, mobile devices, it's a little bit tricky to continue to add more and more and more features, because at a certain point, you end up almost pushing out, you know, people on older hardware that might not be able to play the game, or at least play the game in a way that their device can handle, or in a way that's a fun experience for the end user. And I'm sure that the developers don't want to do that, because they want all of the different parts of their player base to be able to equally enjoy the game. Now, I'm sure that there are ways that you could get around some of this stuff in terms of settings, and I know that there are some, you know, I think there are some Roblox games that approach it from kind of this mentality, where they're like, well, if you're on PC, then, you know, you can use this mode and this mode and this mode, but if you're on mobile, you can use this mode and this mode, but not this mode or this mode. And I think that that's an interesting approach to take, but at the same time, I don't know if it's as doable on mobile devices. Like, now granted, I am no developer, I am no mobile developer, so what I'm about to say might be complete and total, you know, like loony talk, but at the same time, I feel like there might be the possibility for them to say, well, okay, like if you want to push the game to this level, right? If you want the game to get all of these different updates, you know, maybe they'll have to put in a disclaimer when you load up the game, like, hey, do you want to play this version of the game or this version of the game? Or like maybe if you're on an older device, maybe some vehicles that require more hardware power in order to run, like, or software hardware power to run, maybe those will be like grayed out, or the graphics on them won't necessarily look as good on the older devices, but the people on the older devices might still be able to play the game. Now, I know that there's going to be people out there in the chat, or not the chat, in the comments, that are going to be like, well, but that's unfair to the people on the older devices. And what I'm kind of trying to get at is that's what makes it hard for the devs. But if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know any thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys next time.